The Culture Experience. The Culture Experience.
You're listening to The Culture Experience with Mel and Bruce. I'm Mel Tiller, your host, and I am thrilled to be with you today. My guest today is one of the hardest working women in Las Vegas. She is a community sociologist. She advocates for criminal justice, youth development, education, health care, and more. I cannot name all the stuff that she does. I just don't have the time to get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, her name is Dr. Liz Glover. Dr. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, Mel. Thank you so much. That was a powerful introduction.
Well, you deserve a powerful introduction because you do some powerful things in our community. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the school to prison pipeline. I know that you work a lot in that area. That is something that concerns a lot of us in the community. So can you explain what the school to prison pipeline is and how it operates?
Absolutely. So the concept of a pipeline, we know, just connects one component to another. And so with the school to prison pipeline, it's exactly that. It's when malpractices within our education system essentially funnels our youth through a pipeline that astronomically increases their likelihood of ending up in the prison system. And a lot of times people think, come on now, like what happens in a school, we can't blame for one being in prison. But when a school is mishandling youth, and then those youth are put out, and then eventually kicked out, and then therefore eventually in juvie, and then jail, and then prison, and then in recidivism. And that becomes that ecosystem or that cycle.
Okay, so you're talking about putting out. Talk to me about how suspensions impact the school to prison pipeline.
Oh my goodness. Listen, I think it's important to note before I say my next statement that I'm an educator. I have been for over a decade. And I'm an educator that is anti-suspension. I want to first give a 20-second background story if I can. I grew up in Chicago, and I can recall students being suspended and then murdered.
Yes.
Because they're now on the streets. Their parents couldn't afford to take off work and babysit them. But when we're suspending kids, what we are teaching them is you have not conformed. You're not like us. Get out. And when you come back, you better be like us, or else you can get out again. And so we come into this system of constantly putting a kid out. Well, every district has their policy where a certain amount of suspensions can now qualify you for expulsion or removal from that magnet school, or even kicked out and expelled from just an everyday public school. So that's what I mean about the dynamic of being put out.
Okay. So we're talking about put out, we're talking about suspensions.
Mm-hmm.
Describe the individual in our community who is suspended most.
100% Black and brown children. And, we don't make up most of the population. So that should be impossible. If we're roughly Black people, 9% of Nevada, 9% out of 100, there's no way that we should be the main ones suspended. But I think the kicker is that we're also the main ones in prison. So right there, we begin to see some parallels. We're overrepresented more than 3 times our Nevada presence, with over 33% in the prison population. And we see the same thing with suspensions and expulsions. The data is public, and it shows that we are over suspended and over expelling Black children, Black and brown. And so what that means is, let's say a student that's not Black or brown does the same exact thing as a student who is. Well, student A is seen with more grace and mercy. For student A, they care about the why, the antecedent that led up to the behavior. They're more curious about the holistic well-being of the child and all these great psychological things, which we should be. But for every child, we should give that same due diligence.
Okay, so what role does school discipline policies play, like zero tolerance, play in pushing students out of school and into the criminal justice system?
That is such an important question. So, if you go in any CCSD school, for example, they have posters, or they're supposed to be having posters of things that qualify for an automatic recommendation of force expulsion. And the main thing, because of course, one of those is weapons, one of those is sexual assault. I don't think that anybody disagrees that those should be on there. But the other thing is battery. And that is the number one qualifier. And that's where we get into some subjective use of language. Because what happens is, using the prior example, kid A gets into a fight and CCSD police may cite it as a fray or a fight. So they get a ticket for fighting. Doesn't matter who hit first, you both partook, okay? But student B, B for black, gets into a fight and all of a sudden it's battery. Or for example, I've had students I've advocated for where the ticket was written for a fray or for a fight. And then someone comes to deliver that ticket to that parent's front door and has said to them, you know what, a citation for a fray will get thrown out in court, but I'm gonna tell you what will stick, and have changed the citation to battery. Well, the second that B word is distributed, and it's not all on CCSD police, we also have some administrators who will utilize the word battery in the write-up, and the citation doesn't even say battery. But they utilize that word, and before you know it, we're at an expulsion hearing because that's a mandated recommendation for expulsion. So right there, from that moment, you kicked out the school, and you have to await your day in court, in expulsion court, which can take sometimes 4 to 6 weeks.
This is a very serious issue that we are dealing with. So talk to me about the role of the CCSD police, because I've done a little study on this issue, and it seems that when we have police instead of mental health counselors in the school, when we have police who are focused on crime, who are focused on arrest, instead of individuals who are focused on teaching children how to behave, teaching children, giving them tools in which to use instead of violence or the wrong tools that they're using, we know that we're having better success in keeping kids in school. One of the areas in our country that has had success with this is Oakland, California. So talk to me about how what we're doing is setting up a system, a process for failure.
Yes. So I think it's important to note, with the role of CCSD police, they're there in our districts, the same reason why we're supposed to have policing in our community, to keep students safe so that they have a safe and secure learning environment. That is their primary function. I think that some of the concern comes in when we look at how that is implemented, when, for one, you have to remember a lot of schools have, especially high schools, assigned officers. So those officers are there day and day. They see the administrators day and day. They form a rapport and a relationship, as they should. They're in some ways colleagues. They're employed by the same district and they work together. I think some of the stratification is that we have to be just as intentional, the law enforcers, of creating that same kind of relationship with the students who they also see every day. We're building that rapport with the students who they also see every day, and remembering that's really our real employer.
Yes.
I mean, look at our district having a surplus and shift folks and let people go because we're losing people, because their parents are losing confidence in our system. And so I think that the primary function of CCSD police is a great one. Keep our students safe and secure and eliminate some overstrain on the capacity of Metro, right? I think it's good. I also like how it is broken down, for the different schools, different grades. It's not like there's 1 or 2 officers having to man the whole department. And I do think, and I can attest to my experience with having very good and healthy relationships and partnerships and discussions of accountability with the head of CCSD. They've made themselves accessible. Hey, here's my cell number. But what I appreciate is they also said, next time you're at an expulsion hearing, please invite us. Let us see what that looks like. Because here's the thing, they're issuing the citations, then they're not invited to the table. They're issuing the citations, but they may or may not have seen the fight. They're issuing the citations, but they don't have the whole piece of the puzzle. And so I think in essence, the main overarching thing is to be invested in the whole piece of the puzzle. I think there's a great opportunity of growth for CCSD police and even administrators to do their ABCs as well. And by that, I mean antecedent behavior consequence. We can't go right in on the B and look at the B and come in with law enforcement to execute the C. And we didn't do our due diligence on the A, the antecedent, the trigger. So I think there's definitely opportunities just for continued growth, partnership, and development.
If you were in charge and you had the ability to write policies that were effective in reducing the pipeline, what would they be?
Oh, I've been in those seats and I've been able to sit at those tables. Let me make it very clear, only because I didn't wait for an invitation.
Okay.
Or only because first I had a kid that was impacted by the system. So I think that we have to take away the notion of if we could be in charge and find a way to get a seat at the table. And when in those seats, one way that I try to target change and accountability is making sure that there is an objectifiable measure in there where we as decision makers, as administrators, as law enforcers have to look at the antecedent. I can be honest and say that, most people are sheep. Most people are very black and white. They'll follow and do what they're told. This is just how we're socially kind of conditioned, right? It's not a human flaw. It's how we're conditioned. Respect authority, respect what's in black and white, and that's it. I think that we have to empower our administrators to know that they don't have to just only follow a flow chart that's in the policy. If there's an exception, I would want to have a clause in there that says, listen, everything in this flow chart is by design, obviously because we built it based on experiences that the district has had before. However, there's opportunity for a gray area in between. If you think that this doesn't quite fit what's here, please be empowered and encouraged to contact your regional superintendent to further the conversation. I think when we don't have that kind of permissive clause and policy, it makes people really feel locked in and blocked in to, well, it says that it's battery, which by the way, is then forced to be categorized under bullying. So a kid could have never met this other kid before. And now we fall, and because I got cited for battery, I'm also now considered a bully by definition of the CCSD policy. And now I'm expelled. I think if there's a clause to empower educators, if there's a scenario that this doesn't fit, please continue the conversation. Also, there's essentially a flow chart that says, hey, if this happened, then that. And I think that helps so that we don't have people just doing what they want. My concern is this. Yes, there needs to be an area where people can say, but if there's an exception, reach out. But also, even though the flow chart says, if this happens, you must do that, the subjective part is that the consequence can be chosen by the said administrator. And that's where we lose that objectivity. So if I'm in those seats and I'm influencing policy, I want to also see a tiered chart because state law says that we need to have a reduction in disciplinary measures such as expulsion and suspension. I would want to see a chart that promotes that state law. For example, and if this is a first offense, this must be the consequence. If this is a second offense, that way we don't have admin just picking from a Dropbox and saying, you know what, I'm really tired of this kid, or I don't agree with them, so I'm going to pick the most extreme measure. I think we have to eliminate the subjectivity while at the same time still empowering people to say, no, we need to continue the discussion. And I do think that both can be done.
Quite often we see our children get labeled very early, and we can look back from a historical standpoint and see a person who is in jail, who has been who's been involved in crime, but we can look back at his history and see that he was labeled very early, and that had a tremendous impact on the rest of his life. Talk about labeling and how that happens.
Ooh, as a sociologist, we study the phenomenon of the labeling theory very closely. But before I go into theory, I'm going to just talk practicality.
Yes.
I've worked and served amongst those who've been impacted by the justice system. I've been in prisons. I've advocated for people that are in prison. And 100% of the time, I've never met someone impacted by the prison system that told me it did not start when they were a child. The labeling they received as a child, being suspended and told basically get out because you're not conforming, returning to school with no form of restorative justice. And so these things led them to feel unseen, unheard, or getting a super harsh consequence when they were really committing self-defense, which then flips the mind to say, well, if I'm gonna get the same consequence either way, it doesn't matter. And so when we talk about the labeling theory, we have to recognize that when we label, we create what we as sociologists know as a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, because you say, I am that, I shall be nothing but that and become that. Now, again, it's just out of human nature of social conditioning because most people follow what is put into them. Very rarely do we have people that are able to chime in and say, no, I'm not going to be what you became, especially when we're talking impressionable children with no frontal lobe development, especially when we're talking impressionable students who know that they're the main ones in prison, who know that a prison cell was created for them with a nice, not cozy bed from the moment they were in their mother's womb, who know that they're the main ones suspended and expelled. They can see that. And so then not only are they labeled, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of you don't believe in me. The system doesn't believe in me. How am I supposed to have a sense of self-efficacy and belief in myself? So now they do start actually doing the things that they've been accused of or doing them more frequently or getting themselves into situations that me or no one else can get them out of because they were labeled. When a student is even recommended for expulsion mail and they have to wait that 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer for their hearing date, imagine psychologically. Now, I'm no psychologist, I'm a sociologist, but just imagine the mind frame of someone kicked out of their place of education for that long, left at home with their own thoughts if they're not in the streets getting tattoos, committing crime, or doing anything else they shouldn't do. And I'm speaking from experience, okay? They don't have anybody to mentor them in that time. Their parents can't stay at home. Nobody from the school is checking in. The school gives them a link to join live and to log in each day. I've had students who have reported that the person on the other side of that link, their teacher, was sleeping. And so think about what's going on in that moment of mental solitary confinement that then now creates that very monster that we try to label them to be.
So talk to me about the impact of not seeing or being educated by someone who does not look like you. In our system at CCSD, I have been told that people have had children who have gone from the first to the 12th grade, graduated, and have never had a Black male teacher. Tell me about the kind of impact that has.
It stripped your ability to have a staple of identity. When you open up every single book and no one looks like you, or you look at the posters on the wall and yeah, there's this policy in this thick handbook somewhere that mentions there should be no racism or discrimination, but the very content I see doesn't show me in it. It stifles the ability to feel like there's even a chance for relatability. And it doesn't just disservice our students who then think that no one can understand them or hear them. It also disservices the teachers, the support staff, and the administrators that actually don't fit that mold and want to be a support, care about the whole picture, want the kids to know that they can be trusted. But they don't have the representation, and so the kids automatically may assume this notion of you won't get me. And I know I can speak to good-hearted administrators who've been in tears saying, we want them to know that we want to understand. We're not pretending to know every struggle, but we want to understand. And I've also had administrators in the district tell me, we want more representation. We want people in our schools that look like our students, that reflect the body. I know for a fact that Dr. Sam Scavella has been over this nation trying to recruit folks that can better diversify our teaching population. He's been down south to bring them here. You know, I've heard of teachers talk about stipends that they got to come here, teachers from Chicago and here and there. But I think it's important to recognize that even when those attempts at getting representation is not as successful as we hope, there's still other ways. We can't let funding get in the way. There's all kind of community volunteers who would love for an invitation to say, hey, come and speak to our students. I will never forget being an administrator over in the Rocky Mountains. And I had nothing to do with discipline, but I will walk into that office only to get to my office because I was over instruction, and to see these kids who were in trouble that look like me, they're in their seat like this, waiting for their consequence. And I walk in just by me walking in. I haven't even greeted them yet. I haven't even conversed with them. Quite frankly, it wasn't even my lane to know what they had did or why they were in there for, though I made it my business. But simply seeing my presence and seeing representation gave them hope.
So talk to me about we have an important element in CCSD called the School Organization Team,
Yes.
SOT. Tell me what kind of role they play. Positive, negative.
Mhm.
How effective are they?
Oh, I love the SOT, but it has
Okay.
to be properly utilized. So the school organization team, many folks know about a PTO or PTA, parent teacher organization or parent teacher association. And the SOT is a branch of that. And I love that CCSD has been so intentional in making it its own branch, to where in CCSD, PTA does all the warm and fuzzy stuff, Valentine's grams and turkey grams and disguise a turkey and all the cute things that bring school spirit, which is also important to having a sense of belonging. But SOT, they get to roll up their sleeves and do the dirty work. They get to talk about what should happen with the school's funding. They get to talk about topics such as surplusing or teachers being removed. They get to talk about the oncoming of new staff. They get to weigh in on who the next principal will be, but they also get to influence policy. They are the very body that gets to vote every single year and give input on what amendments should go into the CCSD policy. But it's very important to understand, though they are an elected body, it always has to have an administrator, I believe a teacher, and a parent. And though people, they go up and they want to get nominated and voted in, it doesn't prohibit every single parent from that school and student from being present at those meetings. Those meetings are required. There's no such thing as, oh, my CCSD school doesn't have it. Every CCSD school is required to have it. Some of those meetings are even virtually. Every one of those meetings is at least monthly. And we can show up, and even if I wasn't nominated to serve on the SOT, I can still be there at the table to weigh in on the discussion and say, wait a minute, have you considered this? And I've sat in those seats. I currently sit on several SOT committees, none of them by election. I simply show up with a vested interest, and when it's time for them to vote on things, my hand is up and I'm giving feedback and they have to respond. And I've been able to flip votes that way, flip narratives that way. A lot of people say, oh goodness, this has to deal with voting and this and that. It's enough politics going on. I don't do politics. If you don't do politics, including in your school, it will do you. But I think
Yes.
it's important to know that not only are parents invited, we need to be pushing for our schools to let the parents know when those meetings are. Because when the school wants money, oh, they blowing you up with text messages and emails. When they want to know about the school spirit days, oh, your email gets flooded. You got to buy more storage to receive those communications. But when it's time with the SOT meetings to come, what we need to see is an increase in schools that say, you know what, SOT's coming up. Let's flood those text messages. Let's flood those emails. We need presence. We want parents to know they have a voice. And it behooves the school too, because then you build trust. Not only should the parents be there, the students should be encouraged to attend. We have to get our youth practicing now. And I'm not going to say comfortably practicing. If they're uncomfortable, that's okay. That allows for growth. Because how will they learn to use their voice in the future, in politics, in policy change, in positive disruption, if we don't have them practicing at small settings, such as SOT?
So talk to me about the importance of every single one of our children having an advocate. I know that many of the parents say, I'm working, I've got this going on, I've got that going on. When I talk to folks, I say, listen, your kid needs an advocate. If you can't be there, send grandma. If she can't be there, send an uncle, send an older sibling, send a leader in the community. But every one of our kids needs an advocate, and the school needs to know that somebody is watching what they do to our children. Tell me about the importance of that.
Wow. I think it's first important to know that there's an advocate within anyone.
Yes.
You may have to choose what that looks like and what you might want to advocate for, and how you can be best used. But as long as you have a voice, you need to be using its power. It's so important to have an advocate, even if you are a strong one yourself, for also the representation. Because unfortunately, systemically, people expect us to have single mother households. People expect us to be unsupported. People expect us not to know our rights, right? And this is across every professional sector, from doctor's offices to education to law, you name it. But when we have people show up, again, it changes the respectability in the room. When I walk into expulsion hearings, I'm just going to be honest. Good friend Dr. Bush said it's a po dog that won't wag his own tail. I think he said something like that. But when I walk into those expulsion hearings, literally everybody on that panel who is there to decide that child's fate, they kind of sit up and look at me and, hello, Dr. Liz, and I'm coming with a team. Even if they can't be physically embodied, virtually. If they want to take, oh, this meeting's in person, no. I need a virtual option because I have advocates chiming in. Because they don't have to be from this city or state. Get your help however you can get your help. And I've noticed something. When I have those advocates showing up, especially when the body consists of the men that they assume are not present in our lives, it changes the narrative. And it doesn't have to be that you have your own male presence. You reach out to the community, like you said, Mel. If you don't know, and you hold them accountable. This is what I do. And I've had to do it from the moment I moved here, for my own child even. I look up the civil rights organizations in the area. I will look on their website and see what it is they stand for, because all of them have a purpose statement or a mission statement or vision statement. Then I hold them accountable to it. I do a call to action. I put all their emails on there so they all can see it, because nobody wants to be late to a good party. And then I say in there, this is a call to action. It says on your websites that you believe in education, that you believe in justice, that you believe in stopping the school to prison pipeline, whatever it says, that you believe in mentorship. So this is a call to action. I want to know how many of you are going to show up. This is the date, this is the time, this is the place. Who's going to commit? And you start seeing those reply alls come in, and you remember those organizations. But I think it's important to also know this. We cannot let, when our own children go through things, we can't let it just stop there. That should only activate you. It shouldn't be, I advocate for my child and I'm done. The fact that your child was chosen for that difficult situation means that you were trusted to advocate on a grander level, because somebody else's kid didn't have you, didn't have the connections that you have. So we have to be so intentional about saving ourselves and looking out for one another and building our communities, that we say, you know what? Because my child went through this back in the early 2000s or back in 1990s, I'm going to advocate for other children. And we have to show up and show out.
That is wonderful. You have given us a masterclass. So I want you to talk. I want you to just kind of summarize, all right, what we've been talking about, and give us a few solutions to this school to prison pipeline.
Yes. So in summary, you have to know that the pipeline exists.
Yes.
We can't act like it's a theory. And I think that's so important to know, that we have to know that this is real, because there's data. Don't ever let anybody convince you, well, it's not that serious, or he can still bounce back. There is data to prove that they are over suspending us, over expelling us, and over imprisoning us. So if you ignore that data, I want the key takeaway. The key takeaway needs to be to remember, if you're not a part of the solution, you can only be a part of the problem. There is no middle ground. And so when it comes to advocacy and school to prison pipeline and changing the narrative, understand it takes intentionality, that you can only build by opening your mouth. Share your story. It can be something as simple as you see a kid out in public and their behavior has their parents struggling. Start a conversation. If you can identify with that, because that's why it got your attention, start a conversation. You never know where you may be able to plug in and be a vessel and or be served. And most of all, I have to say, remember that the blessing is in the obedience. So when you feel that charge to do more, you don't have to know the answers, just know where to get them or know where to ask. And if you're watching this, you can never have an excuse again, because you know at minimum, you got me and Mel to plug you in, to give you resources, to support in that conversation. So I want people to be empowered And my call to action would be for everybody watching this who has a child in the district to reach out to the admin, reach out to the school, and request that they give you their behavior detail report. Every student has one. The second they have a student ID number. And that is a rap sheet that they will eventually use to funnel your child, if you're not careful, into that prison system. Ask for that report, review it well, and dispute any inaccuracies. It's time to get active.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the dynamic Dr. Liz Glover right here on The Culture Experience. Dr. Liz, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Mel Tiller. You've been listening to The Culture Experience with Mel and Bruce. And remember, protect, celebrate, and fight for our culture. Until next time.
The Culture Experience.